Welcome, everyone, to the Courageous Truth Podcast. As always, I am honored that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with me today. Today's very exciting episode. We have my son, Elijah Lundberg, who has just graduated from the Marine Corps, is going to be sharing a little bit, and we're going to be having a conversation about what it was like for him in boot camp and where he's going to go from here. Elijah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's really excited to have him here. He's going to share a little bit about what his experience was like. But before we get into that, I just want to, if you're listening to this podcast from different parts of the world, the United States has a few different branches of military service. We have the Marine Corps, which we're going to talk about. We have the Army, we have the Navy, we have the Air Force, and we have the Coast Guard. What am I forgetting anything?
No.
I got it all. I got it all. And then, of course, there's different branches of and different elite forces that branch off from those main services. But we're going to focus today on the Marine Corps. Just a quick reminder to like, subscribe, share this podcast with fans and families so we can build a greater audience and get more content, to you. Without further ado, I want to get into this interview, and I'm gonna just start off with a couple rapid fire questions, and we'll see where this conversation goes. So, Elijah, what I want you to do is I want you to just take a quick minute, and I want you to tell me or tell our audience, why did you join the Marine Corps?
I joined the Marine Corps because I really felt that I was built for more than just a regular 9-to-5 job. I was working at Costco, and that was a great job, but I don't know, I felt like I was wasting my potential if I were to work there for the rest of my life, which you see a lot of people make a career out of just working a job that they never intended to work for the rest of their lives. They had no plan, and that was honestly me. I had no plan, but I was always looking for something to do, and I couldn't figure that out. But when I see my cousin going to the Marine Corps, that really put me on, and I started thinking, and I really wanted a challenge. I know that I'm gifted physically and mentally, and I just wanted to do something that would test me and something that is meaningful in a way.
When you think about the 5 years, your high school years, basically your 5 years leading up to you joining the Marine Corps, what do you think was your best preparation for being a part of, a pretty elite military service force?
Wrestling, 100%. Because it makes you mentally tough. They push you to your physical limits, and you got your coaches yelling at you the way drill instructors would yell at you. Maybe not quite as vulgar, but just pushing you mentally and physically, cutting weight. You're hungry, and you're disciplined. It teaches you to be disciplined, and that's really what boot camp was all about, being disciplined.
There is I think a lot of our audience out there, the Courageous Truth podcast audience, a lot of people are interested in what it was like during boot camp. They want to know, a lot of us won't go. I'll never go to boot camp. I'm too old. And actually, I have no interest in doing that. I'm old. I don't have anything to prove. But I think if you could tell our audience what it was like and kind of try to paint a picture in their mind. Maybe they have a son or a daughter or a friend who's thinking about joining the military, or maybe their service in their country. But if you could just explain to us what it was like the first, once you're sworn in, you take the shuttle, you get to your base, wherever that is. If you could just walk us through that first 24 hours, what it was like physically, what it was like mentally, the environment that you went through, and just kind of how you responded in mentally, physically, spiritually to all those things. If you could just kind of share that a little bit with us and help us get a better understanding of what our recruits are going through.
It's definitely a culture shock. You get off the bus and you're immediately getting yelled at, and you have to respond to that. "I sir, I ma'am," and it's different because like they're yelling at you and you still have to respect them, and that's not something that I would any like civilian would ever do, like just being disrespected and then still have to like respect them back. But it was way more of a mental challenge than a physical challenge. You weren't really like running or anything in the first 24 hours. They didn't let you sleep the first couple of nights, so you're like exhausted. We were like standing and I was just falling asleep. Like there was nothing that I could do to stop myself from falling unconscious, but it was just a culture shock. They issued you all your gear, and you go to a squad bay with all these new people that are just as stressed out as you. And then that's really where it starts. You start talking to people and start building connections, and little do you know that those people that you're starting to talk to are going to be like your best friends, your brothers, and the people that you're going to lean on in the toughest situations you've ever been in your life.
So now with that kind of environment in mind, I guess that I would ask next, how long does it take you to adapt, if you do, and how do you control those emotions to be able to be at the top rate, the top place for your training and for your own benefit? Like what are the mental practices that you either had to learn or that you already had in place in order to be able to just, function and do your training and all that?
That's a really good question. You really develop your own ways of doing it. I think everyone has their own way of coping with stress. For me, I would make jokes about it, or I would like sing songs in my head, or talk to people. Talking to people was a huge one, but it was extremely disorienting. Like the first, I don't know, like 3 weeks, it took a while to get used to. I would be like dreaming about boot camp, and I couldn't tell whether or not like I was asleep or not. Honestly, I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking that it was morning and that I needed to get up and get dressed, and I'd be like, what am I doing? Like it's the middle of the night. And yeah, just it's a super loud environment, intense, but it does bring like the strongest version out of you. Not necessarily like the best. It can bring out the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of ugly. But you learn to not necessarily stop feeling stress, but to handle it, perform under stress, no matter how you're feeling. If you're tired, if you're stressed, if you're sad, you still get up every day and you go to work, you get done what needs to be done.
When you talk about the stress and you talk about the environment, why is it that the Marines or any of the armed services, why do they train their people that way in high stress environments? What is it that you learned that what is the reasons they tell you? What do you think is the advantage of continuing with that kind of culture? Maybe just explain that for people who don't know and they're hearing all this. Why is there so much, like, how does that help? How does that build character and make an elite fighting force? Maybe kind of speak into that a little bit.
Well, Marines, historically and currently, they're always the force that's going to be on the front lines. They're the ones that win battles, and no matter what job you do in the Marines, they train you to go to war, to fight. And war it's not peaceful, it's stressful, and really all of boot camp is kind of simulating almost what war is like, uh, especially the stress. And
So, you've been at boot camp, now for a couple weeks. You've kind of gotten your body used to it, your mind used to it. You're used to the stress. You're used to constantly being pushed. You're used to kind of a schedule. You're used to getting yelled at by your drill instructors all the time. You kind of, okay, I've got settled in this lifestyle. How do you maintain your mental poise and knowing that you still have 2 months of this? I mean, how do you continue on with that mental poise, knowing that just a few short months ago you were doing whatever you wanted, having whatever job you wanted, you were freedom, and now you're kind of locked in 24/7 training, stress environment, you're used to it. How do you, once you've settled, continue pushing forward every week with your different trainings and whatnot?
yeah, that's a good question. I would say that that's honestly the hardest part of boot camp, is just the grind, just knowing that you have to keep doing this for 2 more months or whatever it is until you graduate. The Marines, we call it DBAB, which means it's an acronym for don't be a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it doesn't matter how you feel. It's you get up and you get it done. You go to work, you lean on your boys next to you, and you live for little moments. Like me and my friends, we'd always look forward to chow. We'd look forward to breaking sheets. It'd be like 8 o'clock in the morning, and we don't have bedtime till like 8:30 or whatever it is. We're like, man, I can't wait to break sheets. Just talking about just wanting to go to bed, even though like we're not even close to that. Just you find good and fun things throughout the day that you look forward to, whether it's chow, whether it's just like going to the bathroom, and you find things to look forward to, basically.
So, you grew up in a house, obviously, with 8 people, but, you had, kind of your own space. You shared a room or a small house with your brother for the most time, but now you're in a different housing unit, different sounds, different smells, different personalities, a whole bunch of them. Talk a little bit about just what it's like to, I think a lot of people are interested in this too, there's a name for it, I can't remember, the bunkhouse or whatever it's called. Number one, what is that called? But number two, what's it like living with a bunch of other men, and the sounds and how you got along, and how what was that culture like, where you're basically just sleeping, waking, dressing, showering, all those different kind of things. What's that like? What's it sound like? What's it smell like? Just kind of see if you can't just paint that picture for us.
Yeah. Well, you don't get along at all, really. Not at all. But in the beginning, there is a lot of arguing and like talking crap. Like fights almost break out. It's like it's a pretty hostile environment. It's not polite, because you feed off of the drill instructor's energy, really, and so you start like yelling at each other sometimes, but that's kind of where the brotherhoods develop, because you could be yelling at your boy, like saying terrible stuff to him, and like 5 minutes later you're just cool, like dabbing each other up, laughing. And it is a little bit of a tough transition. I think that I had the transition easier because I've lived with eight siblings. I've shared a room, and I've wrestled and showered with other dudes. Like it's kind of the same like energy as that. Uh, Same energy as like a middle school or high school locker room. Uh, so it's kind of like that, but a little bit more hostile, and you're more stressed out, so you're bickering and uh,
So just two more questions I want to ask. I want you to just kind of share a little bit about what types of training you're going through to be a Marine, and then I'm going to ask you about the Crucible. But if you could just take a little bit of time and just share with us what kind of training you go through as a Marine, the physical training. You've talked a lot about just kind of developing that mental strength, but as you're training to be an elite fighting force that's going to protect our nation from threats, foreign and domestic, so to speak. If you could just take some time, what kind of training do you go through to get you, battle ready?
So boot camp is split up into 4 different phases, and the first 2 phases are in MCRD San Diego, and those 2 phases are really all about discipline and mainly discipline, honestly. They teach you how to march, and like if you're doing something wrong, they'll make you like squat down for a long time until you start crying, like some dudes were crying. It's just really little stuff like that. But then when you enter 3rd phase, we go up to Camp Pendleton, California. That's when you really start doing like Marine stuff, like the hikes, shooting, like crawling through the mud, stuff like that. That's when it gets like super physically challenging, but looking back, it was probably like the funnest time of all of boot camp. And what that looked like was we would be hiking with like, I don't know, 50 pounds on our back, and we'd be like, they called them ditties. They would make us like scream out knowledge, like how to read a map, left and or right to left, and colors of the map. And so we learned land navigation, how to work a compass and locate things, locate coordinates. And then we learned how to eat super fast because they wouldn't give you much time to eat, but that it's realistic because like when you're in war, like you don't have much time to eat. You gotta just get it in and get back out.
So all this training culminates, to the end, and I think every branch of military service has a, some would call it a hell week or a final testing that will earn you your merits as a Navy man or a Marine in your case. In your case, it's called the Crucible, and a lot of people I think are more interested in that because that's like the main and final challenge before you earn the title Marine. If you could kind of tell us what that was like, how it started, what went on, and how it ended, and how you got through it, and maybe some of the struggles you had with that, and then what it was like when it was over. So just kind of like sharing and speaking into that and just kind of helping us understand really that final challenge that all Marines go through.
So the Crucible starts Sunday night. It starts with a night hike. We hike, I don't know, like 5 miles to wherever we were staying. We hygiene, and then we go to sleep for only like 2 or 3 hours, and then we wake up, and then it really starts. What I will say is they prepared you for the Crucible since day one. You're prepared for it. They have you so worn down that like you could kind of take not pretty much anything, but whatever they need you to do. It's a lot of hiking. I think we hiked like 50 miles total in 2 days. That was pretty tough because I was getting blisters, and really blisters was the only struggle that I had, but a lot of people were dealing with shin splints and I'm sure other injuries that I'm just not aware of. But we did a lot of team building exercises. Uh, we simulated like raiding a city or a town. And we would shoot blanks to just simulate that, and we would practice like our formations, rushing, and one night we ended with boomers, which is like it's a obstacle course where you're like low crawling through like, I don't know, 12 inches of water. Like it smelled like sewer water. And just the hardest part about things like that is going into it. Like doing it's not that hard, but like the anticipation, you're like, man, like this sucks, I don't want to do it, because they made us do it at night when it's cold and windy, and you're like, man, this is gonna suck. But once you start doing it, you realize that you're 100% capable of it. And that's really what boot camp was. Like, going into it, you're scared, and then you come out and you understand that you're capable of almost anything if you just put your mind to it and decide to do it. I'll say this again. Leaning on the people next to you was 100% like the best coping mechanism, like the best way to deal with all the crap that they're throwing at you. Like, one, it's like competitive spirit, and two, it's like you don't want to let your boys down. Like, you don't want to leave them hanging. They're gonna go through all that pain, and if you're gonna quit, like, you don't want to let them down, and you don't want them to beat you.
So you go through that crucible, and it's how many hours?
It's 50 something hours.
So over 50 hours of these obstacle courses and all this stuff, and then, you know, I think you got to go up this mountain right at the end.
Yeah.
What's that mountain called?
It's called the Reaper.
But you know, you get to the top of that, and then there's a ceremony. What is that ceremony like? You know, if you could just take us through, just I guess what it would mean to the Marine Corps to have a new member, but also what it means to you personally.
Man, that ceremony was beautiful. They had like music playing in the background. They had all of our drill instructors came up to us individually and handed us our EGA, Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, and they told us that they were proud of us, and like no one could take this accomplishment away from us. And hearing that from the drill instructors, like it was crazy, because you know they've been they haven't been nice to you for the past couple months. It was weird for them to like talk to you like that, like almost like a human being. But man, I cried during that ceremony. I told myself that I wasn't, but I was so exhausted, and it sunk in with the music playing, and the drill instructors, you know, like congratulating us. Man, it was an incredible moment, honestly. I didn't look to my left or right because we were in formation, but a lot of my boys, they were crying as well. It was crazy to think about, because going into this, we were told that we were probably going to cry during this, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to cry, but I did.
So now, you know, you wrapped up boot camp, you're coming back off of leave or break or whatever it's called, you know, and you're heading out to more training in school and all that. Where are you headed? What are you doing? And then I want to ask one more question. Where are you going? What are you doing? To just kind of give people an idea of what options there are once you get done with boot camp.
So I have another month of Marine Combat Training, MCT, which takes place in Camp Pendleton, California. And then I go to my MOS school, my Military Occupational Specialty, which is basically your job in the military. I'm aviation airfield services, and the aviation school is in Pensacola, Florida. So that's where I'll be going. There's really quite a lot of options in the military. There's so many different jobs throughout all of the branches. Like, even if you want to be in the union welding or be a mechanic, like, they have jobs for that will set you up for really almost any career that you could think of. Photography, like, that's why I like the military so much, because when I first viewed it, I didn't know that you could build something off of it, I guess. I went to the recruiter's office, and like, they showed me all these different jobs that I could choose and pursue, and I was like, wow, that's crazy, because my plan is to go in for these 4 years, use my MOS school for a civilian job, and then just use the military to build a career for myself outside of the military.
That's awesome. So finally, last thing I want to ask is, I want you to just take a moment. I want you to speak to that young man or that young woman who's out there, who's thinking about, they're weighing their options. They're looking at what they want to do. Maybe they're done with high school, or they've been in community college, or whatever. What would you say to that young man or that young woman who's considering military service? What would you say to them to inspire them, and what steps should they take in order to find out more information, or to sign up, or how would you direct them?
What I would say is, if you're on the fence at all, you really don't want to regret not doing something. I would 1000% rather do something that, like, take a risk and maybe regret it. Maybe it was the wrong decision, but I would definitely rather do that than not do it at all and regret not doing it, and being like, man, I wonder what could have been if I would have done it. So yeah, don't regret something that you didn't do. Regret something that you did do, I guess. Do your research, find out what job you want. Make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. And just make the most of whatever your choice is, really.
So how would someone find out more information specifically about the Marine Corps? If they wanted to join, they wanted to talk to someone, what practical steps should they do to connect with someone that can answer their questions and put them on the right path to signing up or joining?
I would go online and do research on there, and also reach out to your local recruiting station, talk to them. The recruiters basically do most of the work to get you there for you. You just gotta do what they tell you to do, whether it's like getting your birth certificate, actually going to MEPS, or getting in shape. But they'll do all the paperwork for you, send it in. So it's not that difficult. It's not a difficult process.
Well, thank you, Elijah. Number one, thank you for your service to our country. Number two, thank you for taking the time to come and speak to our audience about some of these things. I think it's very helpful, and I think it's also, it satisfies a lot of curiosity that people have about the military that they'll never experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the descriptions to the Marine Corps. And you can go on that and find your local recruiting station, or you can find out the history of the Marine Corps, or any information that you want to know. Go ahead and check the link in the descriptions of the show notes, and it'll be in there. So, but anyway, I think that this is very important, that as I've learned a lot just going through this process with my own son, just about what the military is, and how they need the support of civilians. They need their family around them, cheering them on and supporting them, and making sure they're there for them, because they are the front lines. If war breaks out, I don't go, my son goes. And I want to make sure that he, is supported as he's trained and championed through that. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in today. Be sure to like, subscribe, share this podcast with your friends and family, and look forward to a new episode next week. And continue to take a courageous stand for the truth. Our world is flipped upside down, and we gotta anchor ourselves in truth. So God bless you all, and I will see you next time.